It's great to be with all of you here today, and a real honor. I spent just about all of my 30s here in Chicago, and I fell in love with three things here. First, and most importantly, was my wife. Second was the Cubs. That was awesome. I was watching and cheering from afar, so that was totally exciting for the series. And the third was is the fact of the food culture here in Chicago. I love all the variety of foods, the ethnic varieties, the creations, but also just the ambiance that's wrapped around it. And I don't think any city does food better than Chicago. And before coming to Clif Bar in 2004, that was really my relationship with food, which was the fact of the eating experience. I didn't think too much more deeply about how did the food get there. Like, how was it farmed, what seeds were used, how was it processed? I more thought about just eating it and enjoying that experience. Anything deeper around that thinking of food had to do with sports, and I was doing a lot of triathlons. What was the nutrition that my body needed to get me forward? And the irony is that I actually worked at a food company, but I wasn't really thinking past my plate at home or past the grocery store shelves at work. But that all changed when I came to Clif Bar in 2004. At the time of my arrival, Clif Bar had just taken Clif Bar, the flagship brand, to made with organic ingredients. And we were looking at going through the 100 or so ingredients that we bought at that time and taking a vast majority of them organic. And it was you got to remember, this is just 2 years after the NOP program, the National Organic Program, had been established. So we thought, to manage the complexity, we'd take Clif Bar first, then we'd take Luna Bar, then we'd take Builder's Bar, and we'd just work through it, and it'd be pretty manageable. We couldn't have been more wrong. Many of the ingredients we needed at that time, they simply just didn't exist. And if they did exist, we couldn't find them in the quantities we needed, or we couldn't get them year-round. Or it meant, if we did find somebody, we were breaking up with old vendors to bring new vendors on. So we had to make packaging changes. I mean, this was anything but an easy process. And throughout, what we wanted to make sure was that we kept our prices the same to customers and consumers. One was, we thought that was the right thing to do, to really support organic and keep it going. And second is, we weren't sure if anybody would have paid for it anyway. So we ended up taking about a 4% margin hit during that time period. It's a pretty substantial margin hit to make this happen. But the key thing for us, what kept us going, was that as a food company, the thing we knew we could do beyond anything else to lighten our load on the planet was to take our products organic. And that's what kept us going. So this was a decision that was based on values. It wasn't an innovation strategy at that time, and it certainly wasn't a financial strategy. And for me, it really marked the beginning of my food journey. You know, I sit here today, and it's 12 years later, and I think a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. What has changed is that people's interest, awareness, and concern for food today is driving a lot of change. There's no question about it. And I think it's a really exciting time to be in food. People want to make sure that the food they're eating is healthy, but they also want to make sure that it's good for the community and the planet. They want their decisions to mean something. You know, the millennial generation that we all hear about, 75 million of them, are very passionate about this. And they are making, today, they are the #1 consumers of organic food, which I think is a very exciting thing for us as we go into the future. And what's happened, and what you've noticed, that is organic isn't only a values-based decision, or maybe not even a value-based decision for some companies today. It's good business. And there's no judgment there. I love it when people are supporting organic further and further. Unfortunately, what hasn't changed is our current food system doesn't support these priorities. As parents, individuals, food advocates, food companies, policymakers, we're tethered to a broken system. We need a new food system that puts the health of people, our community, and the planet at the forefront, not on the back. And one that makes it easier for farmers, ingredient suppliers, and food companies to do the same. We need a food system based on sustainable agriculture. So I'm only CEO of Clif Bar in my free time. My full-time job is being a dad to 3 boys. I've got twins 8 and a little guy 6. Anybody have boys? Yeah. If you have 3 of them, or maybe some of you have 4 of them, it's wild and it's crazy. And the amount of food these guys eat now is crazy. I think about when they're teenagers, I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Anyways, but there's one statistic as a parent that I find particularly troubling. And that is that the Pesticide Action Network estimates that 1 billion pounds of these toxic, pesticides are sprayed in the US alone each year. That's about a 3-pound bag for each one of us, annually delivered January 1st of each year. It's not an inconsequential amount, right? Cancer, Parkinson's, ADHD, birth defects, the list goes on and on, all have been linked to pesticides in our food. And farm workers with direct exposure to these pesticides have an average lifespan of 49 years. I'm turning 51 in a couple of weeks. That's a sobering statistic. And of course, these chemicals will pollute and degrade our water, soil, and destroy our ecosystems. Beyond farm workers, though, kids are the most vulnerable. The CDC reports that kids aged 6 to 11 have more of these toxic pesticide residues in their system than any other age group. And as a parent, that really scares me. As a CEO of a food company, that gives me hope that I can drive change each day and that Clif Bar can invest in a healthy, just, sustainable food system. But when we talk about investing in a healthy, just, sustainable food system, we've got a long ways to go. Today, less than 1% of the agricultural land across the US is farmed organically. And we're all pulling, whether we're buying it from the grocery store shelves or we're putting the ingredients in our products or we're the farmers, we're all sourcing from that same 1%. That is just a staggering number. And the issues we faced back in the early 2000s as a food company, they haven't changed a ton. There's wider variety of ingredients today that you can buy, and in some, there's actually a marketplace that's been created. But in many, we are still single-sourced as a company, which as a CEO or supply chain people is a risky place to be. And there are still ingredients that I can't buy. I would love to find an organic macadamia nut. Doesn't exist. I'd love a consistent source of organic whey protein. We can't find it on a consistent basis. So we need an organic supply chain that is going to support the increasing consumer demand for organic and the growing population. And we also need a food system that allows for strong, secure, and economically viable supply chain for farmers, food companies, and the food companies yet to come. So I want to provide you with 3 things that I think we can do. The first 2 are things food companies can do right now, today, tomorrow, and then the third one is some policy suggestions. The first one is providing farmers transitioning to organic with longer-term contracts. There's insecurity during that 3-year transition period of what's going to happen on the other side. That 3-year time period is tough enough as you transition to organic, but what's going to happen on the other side? So we were working with, we wanted to buy more organic figs here domestically. And so started to work with our supplier. And one of the things they'd come back with was that very discussion about what's going to happen in year 4 through 10 and also how we're going to manage through that transitional period. So we ended up committing to a 10-year contract with them, which gave them the ability to make that investment and to have the confidence that when they come out on the other side, they've got a buyer, which will be us. And, the positive is we were able to increase through that purchase 25% of the total organic fig market here in the US. So that was, I feel really good about that. And we're looking in other places to make that same commitment. So second thing, we need to invest in organic research and extension services, particularly plant breeding. Today, organic receives less than 1% of all the public funding for agricultural research. With public research, we can help farmers find the right seeds, the right tools and techniques, and efficient production practices that they need to succeed in this space. In 2015, we announced a $10 million commitment to fund organic endowed chairs doing research on organic plant breeding at land-grant universities across the U.S. This is when this endowed chair will go on in perpetuity, which means long past I'm here, they're going to still be at University of Wisconsin doing research. And I gave it away a little early there. The first endowed chairs was at it was with Organic Valley at the University of Wisconsin. So we're really proud of that, and that program has kicked off. And we also have a second one that's coming up in the next month that we're going to be announcing that we're also very, very excited about. And we're going to keep plugging away at this to make sure that we're providing farmers with the tools that they need. And the third thing is create policies that provide financial incentives for sustainable ag practices, such as more complex rotations and cover crops so that conventional farmers can engage in what it means to farm organically, and realize that there are alternatives to chemical spraying for weed management and building soil fertility, that there are different ways for making that happen. Now, I'm not standing up here today proposing that we need to take every single acre organic, but I know that we have to do better than less than 1%. Can we do better than less than 1%? Much better, yeah. I mean, let's start this process because we've got the consumer wind at our back on this, and we've got to make sure that we're able to meet their demands. So what can it be? 2, 5, 10, 15, 20. I'll take 2 for starters, but we got to get going. Before I close, I'd like to thank Danielle for putting on this event. Together, along with the other food tank summits, these are the types of conversations that we need to start having and dialoguing on. You know, the task ahead of us is not to be underestimated at all. I feel that and I live that every single day in my job. But being here today gives me hope that we can build a healthier, just, more sustainable food system, and one that we can be extremely proud to hand off to our children. So with that, thank you very much for your time.